Hi, I'm Srish, and if there's one thing I'm really good at, it is doing too much. But I feel like the last couple of years, I've really found myself maturing as an artist. And through the process, I've learned that the biggest part of maturing is focusing less on the details and more on the story that I'm trying to tell. So today I want to dive into one of the boss battles of painting, and that is simplification. Last week we worked on the Pisces painting, and looking back, there is a lot going on. So today I want to see if we can find ways to preserve or even enhance the story while also cutting down a little bit on all the unnecessary details. I'm going to be honest, this is going to be a massive challenge for me personally, but if you're along for the ride and you enjoy this video, then please do remember to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Comment below any tips on simplification that you think are important that I may miss out in this video. And of course, come say hello on social media. All the links are down in the description below. And now, without much further ado, let's go ahead and simplify this painting. I like to start by looking at the painting and doing an assessment of what it looks like so far. And luckily for me, I didn't have to do it alone because my mum's a certified Virgo. No, I'm just playing. But we did look at the painting together, and there's a couple of important things that needed changing. First of all, the angle on the head. On its own, I really like it, and I think it's rendered well enough for this stage of the painting. But in terms of the context, I really wanted this character to be front and center, and I feel like a massive way to create that impact in a painting is through the character's face. So I definitely want him to look straight ahead instead. Next, there's the soul being carried up by the fish. Great concept, but it is too messy and the concept isn't really showing through the way that I want. Plus, I also feel like it's taking away from the character rather than just explaining the story. So that needs to change and ideally be made a lot simpler and easier to understand. And then there's the complete lack of atmosphere. I want this scene to be deep underwater, and right now he's very much floating above it. The colors alone are not enough, but also I think the textures are really unhelpful. When you're underwater, textures tend to smooth out and turn to gradients rather than hard edges. Not to mention how the lighting usually gets very dark and dramatic and definitely much cooler toned. So these are the three big things that I want to fix today. For the face, I decided to go with just a very basic front-facing head, though I wanted to focus on the features and expressions appearing a lot kinder. So I tried to make the features softer and rounder and also spaced a little further apart so there is a lot of smooth, flat areas of skin. I want any plane shifts to be subtler than they were with the previous face, so we're going to try and keep the values in a tightly controlled small range. While I did start with a palette knife oil brushes to try and populate the face with a bunch of hue variations and textures, it was still way too much texture and detail, and today we're all about simplification. So while I did still use an oil brush and start all over, I picked a softer one with less texture and more blending this time, and this worked out so much better. I then also went about using the same brush to soften up the rest of the skin, so his torso and arms as well, before going back to refine the face. Even with the expression, I wanted it to just be a soft smile, perhaps just the smallest hint of it. Pisces governs the subtle realm, so I don't really want anything about him to be overt. It needs to all be just a little hint. This is what we have so far, and now we can add detail. Again, keeping it all very soft and low contrast, and any bits that did need dark shadows, I tried to make as small as possible. Pretty happy with this face so far. Let's move on to the next step on our agenda. A key element I specifically want in this composition is those two fish. The symbol for Pisces is a pair of fish, and there is so much mythology around the two fish across so many cultures. Like the name Pisces literally means fish. But it was way too messy to have them wrapped around that glowy soul thing, too many small details too close together, and the silhouettes weren't reading well enough at all. But that's the joy of letting your painting sit while you go away and come back later. Your first few ideas are rarely your best. So instead, and this was my mom's idea and it worked a treat, I made the fish sort of frame the soul. So rather than circling her on the Y and Z axes, they're circling her on the X and Y axes. Just some quick geometry there for you. I tried to keep the silhouette of these fish as simple as possible, so they're definitely a lot more readable now. And since we're simplifying everything, I decided to make life easier by just duplicating the one fish that I had rendered, flipping and color adjusting it, and then just redoing some of the details to make it make sense. Now they look vastly different, but I've essentially only done half the work. I told you, today is all about simplification. We'll come back to these guys in a sec, but first, let's just build the atmosphere a little bit. When it comes to the background, this is where I had to deal with some emotional issues. I was for real emotionally attached to the background that we already had, because that teal and orange texture was just so delicious, and I'm gonna be honest, this step broke my heart a little bit. But we make sacrifices for good art, and that is just part of the process. So I grabbed the gradient tool and started to create some dark, saturated teal gradients. I then also grabbed a paler blue and created a sort of spotlight effect using a bilinear gradient to kind of create a soft beam of light passing through the water, just for drama purposes. Already this is looking far more underwater than it has been, and all we've done is make a couple of gradients. But mood isn't solely about the background, it is also about how the atmosphere affects the other elements in the scene. So next I went in to adjust our character to the lighting and colors around him. I literally just made an overlay layer and painted some lights and shadows following the direction of that beam of light that we created with the bilinear gradient. Next, we need to make him fit into the environment, and that's a quick and easy fix as well. We just grab the local colors right around his silhouette and airbrush them very softly into his silhouette, particularly obscuring the edges. You'll notice we've lost a lot of the edges and details, but that is the whole point. We're throwing him right back into the environment where parts of him mingle with the water and vice versa. Artistically speaking, of course. Coming back to those fish again, I wanted to make them stand out more, give us more of that readable silhouette, so I created a glow around them. It definitely needs refinement, but for now it does just enough for my future self to figure out the intent. And as for the soul that's being sent into the afterlife, I figured a basic, super abstract figure might work a lot better. Since it is going to be the brightest element in the scene, it is already going to draw a ton of attention. It doesn't also need to be massive and complex. Again, I created a glow around it to make it feel more ethereal and such, and then color shifted all the glow to be blue. I think this works a lot better than the orange, because now our character gets to be the highest hue contrast to most of the piece. I then went in to refine everything more, tone down the crazy warmth of his skin and render things better, and here's the progress so far. I think he needs another week's work, but man, I love this cleaner, more simplified version of the painting so much better. Part of me is still a little upset that we couldn't keep that background, but that is just a tough pill to swallow when you paint, isn't it? Sometimes you have to paint over your favorite bits because although that part was beautifully rendered, it doesn't exist in isolation. It has to be in service of the bigger picture, and if it's not adding anything valuable to the scene, there is really no other option but to get rid of it. That, to me, really is the core principle at the heart of the exercise that we've worked on today, i.e., simplification. Gonna be honest, you guys, it feels like it's gonna take a while before simplification becomes a natural habit for me. But what do you think? Are you the kind of artist that starts simple from the very beginning? Or do you do things like me and do too much and then simplify over time through the process? Comment below and let me know. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and learned something today, please do remember to give me a big thumbs up so I know to make more of these. And make sure you subscribe to my channel and have your notifications turned on, because next week we're doing a really fun and actually very different style study, and you do not want to miss when it drops, so get your notifications on. Come say hello on Instagram, Discord, and Kara, and if you want to grab extra content every single week, as well as downloadables like my complete brush kit and prints of my work, it is all up on Patreon. Your support on there allows me to keep all this content coming every week, so I'll leave a link up here and in the description below, and I thank you so much for checking it out. And that's about everything, you guys, so thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you're wondering how we got all these amazing textures on the painting to begin with, you will definitely enjoy last week's video where we dove into digital oil painting in Critter using some free brushes. There's a lot to learn and I promise you'll enjoy the video, so I'll leave that here in the outro down here. Make sure you check that out and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!